Good afternoon and welcome to the City of Sacramento's Wednesday webinar series at 2 o'clock, Resilience, Repurpose, and Recovery. Today's webinar program will be about our small business forgivable loan program. We have a number of folks participating with us today, so we appreciate you joining us to learn about this great program that the City Council has recently adopted. As a little bit of background, first, my name is Darren Gale. I'm in the Office of Innovation and Economic Development. We hold these webinars each Wednesday at 2 o'clock, so we hope that you'll join us for future webinars. Also, there's some great information about past webinars on our website at cityofsacramento.org/biz-webinars. This meeting is being recorded, and and it's being published live on our Facebook page for economic development, and also we will post it to our city's website that I just mentioned and is there on the PowerPoint. So at this time, and then a little bit just information of how we'll go about this. So we'll have a couple presenters talk about the program, go through the application of where it is today. You have an opportunity to use your question and answers. You can go ahead and type those in, and we'll hold the questions until the end, and we will do our best to get through every single question. We are hoping to have the program be about 30 to 45 minutes. Also, just for information, our next week's program will be on economic gardening. We've had a number of great growing businesses here in Sacramento, and I hope that you'll tune in next week to learn about those businesses and learn about economic gardening, and possibly we'll encourage you to apply for our next economic gardening program, which will be open towards the end of the year. So at this time, I'll turn over the time to Leslie, who's in our Office of Innovation and Economic Development, and she will talk a little bit more about the program. So welcome, Leslie. We see you, and I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm pleased to have everyone on our webinar today. I think it's a record number of participants so far. So obviously it's a topic that is near and dear to people's hearts. So thank you for tuning in. I am Leslie Fritchie. I too work in the Office of Innovation and Economic Development, and look forward to walking through our new Forgivable loan program. On May 26th, the Council approved a framework for the use of the $89 million in federal coronavirus relief fund, and we call that CARES funding, if you haven't heard that term. And that framework included the following components: small business and recovery and assistance, workforce training, youth enrichment, family services, homeless services and rapid rehousing, arts, creative economy, and tourism. So you can see we are going to be busy here at the city. I'll walk through the eligibility and program criteria for the use of the initial $10 million in the Small Business Recovery Program, which was authorized by Council at their May 26th meeting, but the criteria were actually approved at the Council meeting on June the 16th. So there have been many influences that have led to the criteria that I'll outline for you today. And the first was our initial loan program. As some of you may recall, in March of this year, we launched a loan program using $1 million, and it was authorized by the Council in the middle of March, which was really very early on in the COVID-19 crisis. In fact, the city was one of the first in the country to establish such a program, and we were contacted by cities, as far away from as North Carolina to cities in Montana, asking us about our program. So we thank our leadership for launching the funding and putting those funds into the hands of some businesses who needed it right there at the beginning of the crisis. So I'd like to briefly talk about that first program, because I think it really was an influencing part of what you will see today. So the initial program, which I mentioned, was $1 million loan program, a little bit over $1 million. It provided emergency relief up to $25,000 for businesses. We made 100 loans, and the average size loan was $10,186. The annual revenue for those businesses was just about $700,000. We had a criteria encouraging a number of small businesses, micro businesses, which are 5 or fewer employees. We had a criteria of 25% of the funding going to those micro businesses. We actually far exceeded that. For 47% of the businesses who received money in our first program were micro businesses. and they use those funds for rent, payroll, and utilities for the most part. And we also did kind of a survey afterwards of the loan recipients to find out how many of their employees were city residents. And we're pleased to see that 89% of the employees of the loan recipients were city residents. We actually then went on to ask them about their household income, and 45% of the loan recipients actually were below 80% of our area's median income. It was a pretty diverse, just like our city, it was a pretty diverse grouping of both race and ethnicity. 45% were white, 15% Hispanic, 24% Asian Pacific Islanders, 11% were Black, and 5% were other. So it was a mixture of different recipients in that initial program. So I wanted to then, one of the elements of that initial program was that it was first come, first serve. And so we heard some feedback about that maybe there were some enhancements that we could make. So though we were able to deploy the resources really pretty quickly, we knew that if we had more funding available, there were some enhancements we could make so we could increase participation across the city and be more inclusive. So we immediately began getting some feedback and outreach to some of the people across the city to figure out what we could do better. And so some of you probably on this webinar actually provided some very good feedback for us as we're tailoring our new program. And so hopefully you'll see it in the criteria that I'm about to outline. We held various town halls with different geographies. We met with the ethnic chambers. We actually also met with Inclusive Economic Development Coalition, which is a group that represents our property-based improvement districts. And then we also received input from our financial tools working group, which is a combination of people from the lending institutions, developers, small businesses, representatives from the ethnic chambers, the Metro Chamber, the SAC Observer representation, and then we also reviewed it with our city's investment committee. So everyone had input, and hopefully we have taken that input and structured the program in a way that we hope you feel is both inclusive as well as represents some enhancements to the program from the original one that we put together. So now from all that feedback, I'll outline the loan program that we'll be launching soon. So once again, we wanted to, this is going to be funded by that federal funding source known as CARES, that we received $89 million from the federal government, but it has to be directly tied to demonstrated hardship due to COVID-19. So that is kind of the main framework for this loan program. You will have to demonstrate that you've experienced hardship in the program, or hardship as it relates to COVID-19. That could be loss of income, reduction in employees, a variety of things, which I'll go into in a minute. So much like the first loan program, this is also up to $25,000. But unlike the first loan program, which was a loan program with some payback terms, this is structured to be a forgivable loan. So I'll talk about the terms for the forgiveness of that loan a little bit later on in the presentation. As I mentioned, the first loan program had a target of 25% of micro businesses, which I'm pleased to say we exceeded, but we're going to have that same target this time. But we have really decided that we needed to reach a little bit deeper into our community. And so we have criteria that indicates a minimum of 75% of the funding to go to businesses that are in economically disadvantaged communities. And the map you see on the right is the map that shows the disadvantaged communities. They're basically our low to moderate income communities throughout the city. And the use is operating expenses. As I mentioned, it could be used for rent or payroll, insurance, maybe some rebuilding of inventory, anything that might be viewed as an operating expense for a business. So some of the criteria. You need to have a physical establishment within the city. You need, as I mentioned, to have 25 or fewer full-time equivalent employees. The projected 2020 gross annual revenue less than $3 million. in business for 1 year as of March 2020. We are allowing home-based businesses if those home-based businesses have 3 or more full-time equivalent employees, or if they're a childcare provider. Certainly, we know that childcare providers are an important part to getting our people back to work, so they have a place to have their kids go and things. So we're really emphasizing childcare as an eligible use for even if it's a home-based business. It can be a locally owned franchise as long as that franchise owner doesn't own more than 3, or basically 2 or less in the area. So once you go through the criteria and the eligibility, you'll want to know, well, how much could I be qualified for? So we have a tier that includes, for those micro businesses, 5 or fewer employees, that grant amount or loan amount would be $5,000. For those that are over that threshold, in other words, those that have 6 or more employees, we would base the amount that you're eligible for based upon the number of employees. So the elements that would be required for you to have this loan forgiven is that within 6 months, you have completed a business plan. You show us that business plan. And then after 1 year, you do 2 of the 3 following things. You have 75% of the employment level that you had as of the first part of March, when COVID-19 really hit our community. The business remains open, and that you complete 10 hours of technical assistance. There are one more requirement, and this is for everyone, that you report how you spent the money and then your employment level at the time after that 1 year period of time. So we feel those marks are pretty manageable, and hopefully ones that anyone who gets the loan could meet. But there may be some that for one reason or another could not meet those forgiveness terms. If they are not able to meet those terms after that 1 year period of time, the loan would convert to a regular loan. The repayment terms would be 0% interest and no payments for the first year, and then $100 a month for each month over a 50-month period of time, $100 a month for each $5,000 of loan funds that we would be providing to you. So that's only if you're not able to do those things for those loan forgiveness, which I outlined before: the employment, remaining open, the technical assistance, the business plan, reporting of expenditures, and employment level. Those things are all you would need to do to have your loan forgiven. So that's the program in a nutshell. One of the key things that we learned, I mentioned early in the presentation, that our original loan program was first come, first serve. We were oversubscribed within hours of the loan program opening. So this time we've changed it up quite a bit. We have about a 10-day period of outreach, of which this webinar is part of it. It started last Tuesday when the eligibility criteria was developed and approved by council, and we're doing it up until and throughout the whole application period. But exclusively this week we're doing outreach, so if anyone wants additional outreach or conversation, we're open to that. The loan application period will go from June the 29th, which is Monday, at 9 a.m., and it will close on Monday, July the 13th at 5 p.m. So that's the application period. The applications will be available on the city's website through an online portal process. So anytime during that 2-week period, you can submit your application. It's not first come, first serve. We wanted to have a different process that allowed more people to get ready for the loan application and to submit in a way that gave them more time to prepare and submit the application. As you'll learn in a minute, the application is pretty straightforward. So as part of this webinar today, we're going to walk through the draft application so you can see, for the most part, it is fill in the blank. We are not doing loan underwriting per se. It is really just a matter of determining eligibility based upon the criteria that I outlined today. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Ash, who I believe is going to walk through the application.
Yeah, thanks, Leslie. Let me just share my screen. All right, so the URL, I saw somebody had asked a question. This page is currently up on the city's website. It's just cityofsacramento.org/bizloans. We're describing a little bit of the program. We'll certainly add more details as we finalize them. But on Monday, you will see a link to get to the application. And so that link will take you to a cover page that will, again, have some more information about the program. But at the bottom or on the right-hand side, if you're on a desktop, instead of this submissions open message, you will see a button that says Start Application. And so that will take you to this page. And this is the entire application. So I'm going to kind of walk through it. I'm going to go relatively quickly. I know there's lots of questions, so I'll probably just try to call out some of the items that are sort of non-standard or you may not expect. So up here, just in terms of the instructions, what we're really trying to explain here is you can start your application and come back to it at any point in the future. There is no save button. Just as you type, it's going to save the information. The only thing that you need to be aware of, though, is you need to enter an email address. If you don't enter an email address, you won't be able to recover the information that you previously entered when you come back to it. So that's just the only disclaimer there. Next, we just have kind of a standard disclosure about the state's Public Records Act, just describing how the information submitted may have to be turned over through some sort of legal process if the city's required to do so. And then we start with the actual application. So we're looking for your name, your email address. Again, this is really the most important item. If you're going to come back to your application, you may even want to practice that process before you spend a lot of time filling it out. Just make sure you're comfortable being able to find the application. Essentially, you'll get back to that home page. It'll ask you to enter your email address, and then the system will send you a link, and that link will allow you to see the information that you previously submitted. So phone number, the name of your business, then we want the legal name of the business entity if it's different than the business name. Then we'd like to know the address. And here is where we just want to clarify that the program is only open to businesses within the city limits. If that's something you're not sure about, you can call us or email us and ask us a question, but we would just hate for you to spend all this time completing the application and then learning that you're not eligible because you're not within the city limits. And so there is a link that will take you to this page. Just as an example, this is an address that's within the city. So that will turn over the council district. So I know that's going to be in the city. Just as an example of an address that's not, actually, yeah, so that is not in the city limits. Again, if you get this message and you feel like you are in the city limits, go ahead and contact us. We'll help you figure it out. But again, we don't want you spending all the time to start the application and complete it if you're not eligible. So then we're looking for the owner's name, the owner's home address, the city council district, and you can get to that from the same link that I had used. It's again posted here to find the city council district. Sorry, I am struggling a bit here. Okay. Okay. Then we want to know if you own or lease. Then we're asking for the ownership share, the name of each owner and the share of ownership. So you would just put Joe, 50%. And then to add another owner, you would click add another, and then you would repeat that same process. Then we want to know the type of business entity. Is it for-profit corporation, LLC, etc.? Is it a franchise? If it is, you're going to get additional questions that pop up asking how many franchises you own. We want to know if it's your primary source of income, the primary business activity. If you have an ABC license, we have a pretty lengthy drop down here. We just want to know the type of license you have. Again, where we're asking for additional information, there is usually links below the question that you can click on to get to where you can find that additional information. All right, so we're asking you to then describe your business hours, number of full-time employees, number of part-time employees, and then we want to know what is called the number of full-time equivalent employees. I'm going to actually hold off on trying to explain that, and maybe Darren or somebody else can explain that for the Q&A. But just note that FTEs or full-time equivalents is different than the number of full-time employees. A full-time employee is someone who works 40 hours or more per week, but FTE is a way of incorporating part-time employees into the overall calculation. Then we want to know the number of your employees that live within the city. Again, that would be within the city limits. The range of revenue for 2019, the estimated revenue for 2020, other forms of assistance that your business may have received due to the COVID crisis, the number of years that the establishment's been in business, the impact of COVID, which again, Leslie mentioned is very important for this program. We want to know the date that that hardship began, how you envision those impacts will affect you over the next 30 days. We're interested in knowing what services, other services besides capital you might need. Those are areas that we'll try to help you provide assistance for you with. We're then also just curious if your business received any physical damage or vandalism or theft in the last 30 days. And there's some follow-up questions if you answer yes to that. Then we're asking for really specific information, your employer identification number, your business operations tax certificate. Again, you'll click this link. It will take you to this page. As an example, if I was one of the businesses that received the first round of loans was Tomato Alley Collective. So if you search for the business name, they show up here and then you click detail. And you'll just copy and paste this first number where it says account number, and you'll enter that into the field. Then we're looking for the specific amount of revenue in 2019, your average weekly payroll, your average weekly hours, your household income category. This is using a standard known as area median income. Again, there's a link down here. What you're going to do is click this, open it up. On the top half here, we have the number of people in your household. Then your income maximum is in the cell. So let's say you had 3 people in your household and your income was $35,000, you would fit in this 30 to 50% AMI category. So when you go back to the application, just click 30 to 50% and you're done. Then we want to know the amount of your rent or mortgage on your business property. Then here we're just wanting to know, do you have any outstanding liens or judgments? Is the business owner subject to any litigation? And then lastly, we're asking you to upload some documentation. So the first document here is your W-9. We link to that as well. Then your Secretary of State status. So this can be your certificate of good standing if you have a copy. If not, you can use this business search tool and basically upload a screenshot of the business as I'm just going to type Shake Shack here. Let's see. So I'll click on them, and then just right here where it says status active, that's really all we want to know. You're in good standing if you're active. The Secretary of State would have suspended you if you're not. We may ask for the official certificate as follow-up, but if you have a copy, you can always send it to us too, or upload it here. If you're a nonprofit, we also would like your Form 990. We link to that here. You can then upload any supplemental information that we didn't previously ask for, but you think would help us better evaluate your application. You then need to agree to some of the terms that Leslie mentioned. And then you will get to the bottom, and a preview is not available because it's still in test mode, but essentially you need to preview your application and then submit it. It's really important to preview and submit. If you don't hit that submit button, we will not receive the application. So please make sure you preview and submit. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and hand it back over to the team.
Great, thank you, Ash. I'm going to go ahead and put back up our PowerPoints. We have some contact information here. So first, I'll allow Leslie to go ahead and talk a little bit about the process and schedule. Then right after this slide, we'll go to answering questions live.
Thank you, Darren. So I mentioned that we are in the outreach mode here, doing outreach this week before the applications go live next Monday, but we will continue that outreach process up until July the 12th, right before the applications become due. So we're not stopping just on Monday. We will continue that outreach process throughout the application period. So the application period, we go live 9 o'clock on Monday, June the 29th until July the 13th. A couple things I wanted to underscore: that the applications are available for, as we mentioned, both businesses and nonprofits. So please apply between June 29th and July 13th. And then we will be going through some review and selection. We'll outline to see, or we'll go through all of the applications to see that people met the eligibility criteria, and a review committee that will consist of city staff as well as some outside parties will go through that list and basically narrow it down based upon those eligibility and review criteria. And then we'll probably still have more than we can assist with this particular pot of money that council has given us, which at this point is $10 million. But so we will be winnowing that down to a final list using a lottery or random draw process. And then we will be working with a third-party provider to get the documents signed and the disbursements out to folks as quickly as possible. We sent out a request for proposals for a lending partner to help us with this, because we one of our main things is to try and get the funding to you as a small business and nonprofit community as quickly as possible. So by teaming up with a lender, we're able to do that in a way that we feel is probably the most expedient way to get the funds that you need as quickly as possible. So I just wanted to underscore that we encourage you to apply during this application period. We look forward to getting a lot of applications, and we hope that we have outlined the eligibility criteria in the webinar today. It will be on our website, and certainly we're available for questions moving forward. Darren's going to kind of outline some of the outreach that we will be doing in terms of other webinars, and then also talk about the small business hotline.
Great, thank you, Leslie. So I'm glad you mentioned a couple of other webinars. So this Thursday and Friday, we will have a webinar actually in Spanish for all of our Spanish-speaking businesses. There will also be a webinar in Vietnamese that we will be hosting on Friday. So if you go to our city's website of City of Sacramento /biz-webinars. We will have all those webinars there. Also, if you know of an organization or if you're part of an organization and would like to, hold a meeting that's small for your group, please let us know. We would love to host a similar digital type of webinar and an opportunity to kind of go through the program. And we can do this now all the way up to the time that the application closes. So if you find that you have questions once the application is open, please don't hesitate to email us or call us. There's a hotline number up on the page right now along with an email, and we will get back to you as quickly as possible. We promise to do so at least in 24 hours, but we definitely, we have people that are manning those phones. We know that we'll have a lot of phone calls. So at this time, Leslie, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stop sharing this. I'll put it back up at the end. And we have a number of questions. So maybe I'll start with some of the easier ones and and then we'll go on a little bit, some deeper ones that take a little bit more time. So two easy questions. Do nonprofits qualify, and do businesses outside the City of Sacramento qualify?
Nonprofits that have a physical establishment within the city do qualify. Businesses that are located outside of the city limits, unfortunately, do not qualify for the city's loan program.
Great. So one of the things that you talked about the loan in order to make it forgivable is that they'll be required to have 10 hours of technical assistance. The question was, could you please explain that?
Certainly. The technical assistance components, we actually next Tuesday at the council meeting, we are asking the city council for $5 million to go towards technical assistance for small businesses and nonprofits. We envision that the small business community could use assistance in preparing the business plans that I mentioned. They may be needing some assistance in terms of ways to digitally change what they do. And there's a whole variety of different types of technical assistance. And so we will be working with some other providers in the community to contract with them so we can get some technical assistance out to the business community and assist them in more ways than just the provision of capital, but also in some information sharing to strengthen their business.
Great. So, a question came in, obviously for home-based businesses, you either have to be a childcare provider or you have to have 3 or more employees. How about if you're a sole proprietor, one business owner, and you have a physical location in the city that's not a home-based business? Would they qualify for the loan program?
If you are a sole proprietor and you have a physical establishment in the city, you would qualify for the program. It's only those home-based businesses that may only have fewer than 3 FTEs that don't. Once again, a sole proprietor within the city would qualify.
Great. So at the beginning, it mentions, hardship. How will a business be, how will that be evaluated when someone says that they had a hardship based or due to COVID-19?
I think one of the easiest ways to demonstrate hardship is the loss in revenue. Because of the stay-at-home orders and the governor's orders for a variety of businesses that aren't essential to shut down, you've experienced some loss in revenue. I think that's probably one of the easiest that you could demonstrate in terms of hardship, and that directly ties back to a COVID-19 health conditions and public health standards. So that would be one easy way that a business could show an impact by COVID-19.
So if someone's trying to determine their FTEs, are they able to include independent contractors as employees?
Independent contractors are independent contractors and not employees, so that would not qualify. I have a question.
Okay.
I'll ask my own question and answer it. So what happens if you applied for funding the first go round for the first $1 million? So unfortunately, you will not be eligible for this loan program, but the good news, there is good news. We got council to approve the change of those original loan terms. So originally the $1 million were loans that had to be paid back. We are going to be converting those to this forgivable loan format. So you would have to have your loan forgiven, if you applied and received one in the first go-round, you would have to follow the terms I outlined in this presentation for the forgiveness, but you would be eligible to have your loan completely forgiven under this new program if you received one before, but you can't get an additional allocation.
Can someone apply if they've received some type of federal assistance, be it a PPP, EIDL, or SBA loans forgiveness or unemployment?
Yes, you are eligible certainly to apply. We are going to take that perhaps into consideration as we're reviewing applications, but we're not indicating that you're not eligible for the loan.
Let me look at a couple other ones, and I'll get right back to you. You know, there was a question of, it mentioned that the loans for micro businesses is $5,000. If you're over 5 employees, how would a person's loan be determined, the amount of loan?
So the loan amount, if you have 6 or more employees, will be based upon full-time equivalency. So I don't remember the number. I think it's 12. So we are determining the loan amount based upon $1,280 per employee. So if you're 6 or more, you can do that math. It would be 6 times $1,280 to see how you would qualify and how much you would qualify for. So that goes all the way up to the 25 full-time equivalent number with a $25,000 total maximum.
And so it appears that to the application, there's not a lot of documents that I need to upload. It looked like there was the certificate of good standing or the Form 990. Can you think of anything else, Leslie, that a business might need to have on hand to fill out this application that they need to turn in? You know, one of the things that's come to my mind is in order for them to fill out the FTEs, the full-time equivalents, they'll need to know what kind of their average hours worked in an average week to determine that. But other than that, it seems like there's not a lot of documents that someone would need to upload.
No, I think we've designed this so it is pretty straightforward. The documentation is fairly minimal, and so we're not underwriting these loans. It's based upon eligibility criteria alone. We want to try and make this very simple for folks so we can make sure we get good participation across the city and can get you the funding as quickly as possible.
So 2 questions related to the first loan program. If someone did apply for the first loan program and was not successful, do they need to go in and reapply and put in all their information, or will their first application be used?
Yes, unfortunately, you do need to reapply. I apologize for that. Our systems don't overlap, so please go in. Hopefully, it will be easy for you because most of this application is built on the previous application. So I'm certain that you can fill it out fairly quickly.
And then for those who did receive the loan and it'll be going into a forgivable loan program, will they be contacted by the city?
They will be contacted by the city. That is on our to-do list to contact you both by letter, and then we'll follow up with documentation.
And then how about, so it mentioned franchises and having more than 2 franchises. You know, there's a couple business owners that own multiple businesses, sometimes with the same name. Would they qualify if they had, let's say, 4 different restaurants in the region under the same name?
Yes, they would qualify. If they're not franchise businesses. They are just independent restaurants.
Correct.
So yes, they would qualify.
So, you know, you mentioned that independent contractors are not employees. However, they might qualify as a business as long as they have a physical location within the city of Sacramento that's not home-based.
That's true. That's true.
Okay.
Yeah. I think so.
And if a business owner has a business that's located in the city, but they live in a different city, would they still qualify to apply?
Yes, the criteria is where the business establishment is. That business needs to be within the city.
And you know, you mentioned the BOTC the business operation tax certificate. Some businesses are not required to have them, and some businesses do not currently have them. But will that disqualify them from applying for the loan program?
So I'll pull that apart to two, because it kind of had two parts to it. If they're not required to have a BOTC, we're not going to ask them to get one. They're not required by the type of business they have. And that's true of some businesses within our city. If they don't have a BOTC currently, we are indicating that they can get the BOTC. They need evidence of it by the time we close on the loan.
In the first loan program, it was really for retail, restaurants, and daycares. Are professional businesses, do they qualify now for the loan this go around?
Yes, we're not making a distinction about the type of business. This is an open program. So much like the first program, we had $1 million tailored to those particular businesses. Now our pot is a little bit bigger. We have $10 million in resources. So we felt we could open it up to a wider range of businesses.
So you talked a little bit about the technical assistance. How about the business plan that's required to be submitted within 6 months? Is that something that someone needs to go out and have created for them? Obviously that can cost a lot of money, and that was kind of the question that they asked.
Mm-hmm. We're envisioning that the technical assistance, one of the types of contracts that we may be entering into as the city, is to help especially those that might be getting this loan program through their next steps. And one of their next steps may be the creation of a business plan, or even maybe updating one that they may already have. It doesn't necessarily need to be a new business plan, but one that is current and current based upon the current environment and market conditions.
Right. And just to clarify, there was another question about BOTCs, is if you do not have a current BOTC, you may still apply. And also during the application, there'll be a link where you'll be able to determine if you do or do not have one. And then again, if you do qualify and you do receive a loan, you'll have an opportunity to go in and get a business license as part of that process. How about if businesses are owned by multiple people? So, one business has 3 owners, and that owner might be part of multiple businesses. Are they disqualified if one of their owners receives a loan in one business and then he has multiple businesses that they've applied for?
I think we'd look at kind of percentage of ownership and see how that worked through. So the situation you're describing is that one business owner has is a part owner in other restaurants.
Correct.
Or it may not be restaurants, maybe you said restaurants, but I don't think that in and of itself would disqualify them for applying for that other business establishment.
Right. And so I know you answered this, but maybe you can go over it again. If someone receives a loan, but they don't meet the requirements to make it a forgivable loan, could you talk about the loan terms?
Sure. The loan terms are, if you're not able to meet the terms for the forgiveness, the loan would convert to a traditional loan. So that means there would be payback required. The interest rate would be charged at 0%, so basically no interest on the money that we would provide to you. There wouldn't be any payments on that loan for 1 year. And then after that 1 year period of time, your loan payments would be $100 a month based on every $5,000 that we lent to you. For example, if you're a micro business and your loan was $5,000, your payments would only be $100 a month for 50 months. So $100 a month for each $5,000 of loan funds that the city provided you through this program.
Great. A question was, obviously there's a number of different types of corporations, and all corporations do qualify, correct, to apply for this loan program. It'll just go down to if they meet the other criteria. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So one of the things, and I don't know if Ash, if you're still on, I think one of the things that you mentioned, Ash, was you can, as long as you enter an email into your application, you can come and go during that time to fill it out. So it's not like you need to get everything done all at once. Is that correct, Ash?
That's right. As long as you fill out your email address, you can leave your screen. Usually if you're using the same computer in the same browser, you won't even need to enter your email address. It will just remember you. But even if you jump to a different computer, all you'll need to do there, you'll see a link that says resume previously started application. It will have you type in your email address, and then it will send you a link. And you click that link, and magically all of the information you previously submitted will appear.
Great, thank you, Ash. And the application, a couple questions have come up is if they can see the application beforehand. In short, it's still a draft application, and in order to make it fair to everyone, that application will go up at 9:00 a.m. on Monday. So that application will not be up prior to the application opening. One of the questions, Leslie, was could you clarify or talk a little bit more about how the 75% of funds will be for disadvantaged communities and 25% at a minimum go for microloans? I think the question was, they thought, is it 25 at the 75, 25 at 100%?
So they are not, they don't, I guess they do overlap. It's 25% of the whole pool we want to be the micro enterprises. So 25% of the whole pool, and of the whole pool, we'd like 75%. Our goal is to have a minimum of 75% businesses that are located within those disadvantaged communities. So you could, if you were a business, you were a micro enterprise, you actually could give us two things, right? You could go towards the 25%, and then you'd also be in the 75%. So they're not mutually exclusive.
One of the questions, this is a really good question. We might not have an answer for you, but at least I'll bring it up, was they asked about the business plans and if they'll be treated confidential. Many times business plans have information that they'd rather their competitor not understand. So I would say that if you submitted it, we'll need to come up with what needs to be included in your business plan prior to finalizing that. But the last thing we want to do is have you submit some type of confidential information. So right now I wouldn't say we have a great answer for you, but we'll definitely work on that and appreciate someone bringing that up. The disadvantaged communities map, that's on this. That will be on the city's website at cityofsacramento.org/bizloans. Leslie, do you want to talk a little bit of how what did the city use to determine what a disadvantaged community is? Because I believe it's not something that we created. It's areas that were already established out there. Is that correct?
That's correct. The yellow areas that you saw in that previous map are low to moderate income census tracts, and they are used for our federal funding source known as Community Development Block Grants. So those are the census tracts that are eligible for CDBG. So we use that same determination for our disadvantaged communities. There are two other areas, but they tend to nestle within. And those are opportunity zones and promise zones. But generally, if you are located within that yellow low mod area, then you would qualify and be considered as part of our 75% goal. And that ties back to the low to moderate income is income below 80% of median income. And that 80% threshold certainly depends upon how many in your household. For example, if you're a household of 4, that area median income is about $50,000. So that's where that threshold is in the establishment of those yellow areas.
Great. The next question was, when is the city hosting webinars for Chinese, Vietnamese businesses and Hispanic businesses? Tomorrow at 3:30 is the webinar that will be held in Spanish. On Friday at 2 o'clock, we'll be holding a webinar in Vietnamese. I do not believe that we have a finalized date and time yet for a webinar in Chinese. But if you represent an organization that would like to have a presentation for this program, please email us at smallbusiness@cityofsacramento.org, and we will do our best to set something up. I'm going to wait here. We've gone through the majority of questions. I think some of the questions are really technical questions as it relates to what might be required in one of the items on the application. If you have, what I would request is once the application open, please go through, and if you have a question, please contact us either on our small business hotline or on our email. But I just wanted to give a couple more seconds if there's any last seconds or last minute questions. One of the questions was, will this webinar repeat? If we need to repeat this webinar, we will. However, we are recording it, and it will be on the city's website at cityofsacramento.org/bizwebinars. I'll go ahead and put back up our websites so that you can see that. Plus, you can have the phone number and the email for our small business hotline. Let's see if any other questions came in. We really appreciate everyone participating. I'm sorry if we did not get specifically to your question, but if we didn't, again, please give us a call or send us an email. Is there anything else that you'd like to add, Leslie?
No, I thank you very much for joining us. Oh, am I on mute? Yep. Thank you for joining us on the webinar today, and we look forward to reviewing and considering your application.
Great. Well, thank you, Leslie. Thank you, Ash, and thank you for, I think we had well over 300, close to 400 people participate in our webinar today. Again, if you missed anything or you want to go back and watch it immediately, this has been broadcast live on the city's Economic Development Facebook page. And by this evening, we will have this uploaded on our cityofsacramento.org/biz-webinars. Really appreciate everyone participating. Again, next Wednesday at 2 o'clock, we will have a webinar about the economic gardening program, and you'll get to meet the businesses that participate in that program and hear a little bit about how you can apply next go around. So once again, I'd like to thank Leslie and Ash, and hopefully we've been able to answer most of your questions, and please continue to check our Facebook page for any additional information. Thank you.
Thank you.